The rain fell like shards of glass against the windows of the city that night, cold, merciless, and endless. In the blur of headlights and luxury, one man sat high above it all in the glass tower of his success. Arman Khan, the millionaire whose name was printed in business magazines and whispered in the corridors of power, stared blankly at his reflection. The world saw his empire, but what he saw was emptiness. A man who had everything except the warmth of love he'd once thrown away. But destiny, it has a strange way of bringing us face to face with the things we try hardest to forget. Before the story unfolds, if you believe in the power of kindness, take a second to like this video, comment your thoughts, and subscribe to Kindness Universe. Because every story we share here reminds us that love, no matter how lost, can always find its way home. That evening, Arman had a meeting, another investor dinner, another deal that would make him richer. His driver waited downstairs with the black Mercedes, and the city lights glistened like broken stars on the wet streets. He stepped out of his penthouse, adjusting his expensive watch, his life perfectly timed to this second. The rain was heavy when they reached the old part of town, a place Arman hadn't visited in years. The streets here smelled of mud, smoke, and memory. He hated this route, but the traffic forced his driver to take a detour. "Sir, we'll be delayed about 20 minutes, said the driver apologetically. Arman sighed, scrolling through his phone, irritated. But then, something outside caught his eye. There, by a half-broken bus stop, under the pouring rain, sat an old woman. Her clothes were torn, soaked to the bone, and in her trembling hands was a piece of bread she had picked from the ground. She was eating it slowly, not out of hunger alone, but with the quiet desperation of someone who hadn't eaten for days. People passed her by, umbrellas up, eyes down, hearts closed. She didn't beg. She didn't ask. She just ate what little she had, alone in the storm. Arman frowned. Something about her struck him. The curve of her hands, the way she pressed the bread close to her chest before taking a bite, as if saying a silent prayer. "Stop the car," Arman said suddenly. The driver hesitated. "Sir, it's raining. I said stop." The car halted. Arman grabbed an umbrella and stepped out. The cold wind bit into his suit, but he didn't care. He walked closer, the sound of the rain mixing with the distant noise of thunder. When he reached her, she looked up. Her eyes were faded, cloudy with age, but they held something hauntingly familiar. "Amma." The word escaped his lips before he even knew why. The old woman blinked, confused. I'm sorry, son. Do I know you?" she asked weakly, her voice trembling from the cold. Arman's throat tightened. No, it couldn't be. His mother had died years ago. At least that's what his relatives told him when he'd run away as a teenager after a fight, chasing the dream of money, leaving her in a small village, promising he'd return. But he never did. He knelt beside her. "Please, what's your name?" She hesitated, shivering. "My name, it's Shabnam," she whispered. The world stopped. Shabnam, his mother's name. Arman felt his breath catch. He stared at her face, really looked at it this time. The wrinkles, the lines of pain, the soft trembling lips that once kissed his forehead when he was a boy. It was her. Older, broken, but still her. He dropped the umbrella and fell to his knees in the rain. "Amma, it's me, Arman, your son." For a moment she just looked at him, uncomprehending. Then her lips quivered. "Arman? No, my Arman left. He said he'd come back." But he never did. He forgot his mother. Her voice cracked, and those words sliced through him like knives. He took her cold hands in his. "I didn't forget, Amma. I lost my way." Tears mixed with rain as he held her, feeling the weight of years he could never reclaim. People walking by stared. A rich man in a designer suit, kneeling in the mud, crying like a child. But Arman didn't care. He'd spent his life chasing millions, but now all he wanted was forgiveness. He lifted her gently. "Come, Amma. You're coming home with me." The next morning, the city woke to headlines about Arman Khan. Not about a business deal, but a photo that had gone viral. A millionaire carrying an old woman through the rain. In his mansion, the air smelled of warm soup and sandalwood. Shabnam sat on a soft couch, her eyes wide with wonder. "All this is yours?" she whispered. He smiled faintly. "No, Amma, it's ours now." She looked at him, tears welling. "You've done well, my son. But why did you come back so late?" His chest ached. "Because I was blind. I thought money could fill the emptiness you left. I was wrong." She reached out, her wrinkled hand touching his cheek. "It's never too late to come home, Arman." For days he stayed by her side, feeding her, talking to her, catching up on years of silence. He canceled meetings, ignored calls, and shut himself away from the world. For the first time, he laughed like the boy she once knew. But time, cruel as ever, had its own plans. One morning he entered her room with breakfast, only to find her lying peacefully, her eyes closed, a faint smile on her lips. On the nightstand was a note written in shaky handwriting. "My son, don't cry. You found me, and that's all a mother ever prays for. I'm going to rest now knowing you came back. Be kind, my Arman. The world needs your heart more than your money." Arman's world shattered. He fell to his knees, clutching her hands, the same hands that had once held him as a baby. The mansion echoed with a sound it had never known, the sound of grief. For hours he sat there, whispering apologies into the silence. But then, something inside him changed. He looked around at the gold, the marble, the luxury, and suddenly it all meant nothing. That very week, Arman sold half his business shares and used the money to open the Shabnam Foundation, a home for the homeless and elderly abandoned by society. Every wall of that place had her name engraved, a mother's love immortalized in brick and hope. He visited the foundation every day, sitting with the old and lonely, listening to their stories. He smiled more, gave more, lived more. One evening, a reporter asked him, "Mr. Khan, why give up your fortune?" Arman looked at the camera and said softly, "Because I learned that wealth isn't what you have in your bank. It's what you carry in your heart. I once lost everything chasing success, but I found love in the rain, and it was my mother." If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to Kindness Universe. Your one click helps spread love and kindness across the world, and you never know whose heart it might heal. That night, as the rain fell again, Arman stood by his window, but this time he didn't feel alone. He smiled, looking toward the sky, whispering, "Amma, I kept my promise. I came home." And somewhere beyond the clouds, the rain seemed to soften, like a mother's gentle touch on her child's face. Message: sometimes life gives us all the riches we can dream of, but takes away the very soul we built them for. Never let pride, distance, or time steal the love of the people who made you who you are. Because one day, when the rain falls hardest, love is the only shelter that truly keeps us warm.